How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, I want you to keep one particular word on your frontal lobe. Solidarity. That's the best that I can pronounce it. Excuse me for being tongue-tied. Keep that on your frontal lobe. So my royal family, I'm going to take y'all on a journey. This is going to be a bit of a long video. And we're going to get into the hyperbia around what's going on in the Asian community. And the journey that I'm going to take the royal family on is how they want to use us to fulfill their agenda. And their agenda is Black Dollars Matter. Point blank. And I'm not going to go too far back, but I'm going to show y'all in these series of videos and a bit of an article that I'm going to read how all of this has been set up, and these people have been waiting for a big enough incident to happen where they can continue on with having their agendas fulfilled. So lately we've been hearing that there's been a great deal of crime projected at the Asian community, and the energy that they are projecting is like they are the only one and have the cornerstone on having violence projected at them, and enough is enough. But then they want to incorporate the royal family in their pain and plight, knowing damn well they don't give a damn. I'm letting anyone know from the Asian community, you come over here to the true royal family or my true royal channel, I'm going to be very unforgiving about the statements that I make, because we're not going to horse around over here with y'all bullshit, because it's straight bullshit. Now, America, the fiber of America is built on royal blood. Our blood soaks in America. This is a known fact. We built America, let alone the entire world. But we're going to focus on America. And we all know that the Asian community and other races too as well, if you want to make a quick dollar, come from another country and set up your restaurants or your stores, and you got enough dumbass black people that will patronize these businesses. And I know the way that I'm speaking may even piss off some of my own, but I'm going to be core and I'm going to be candid because I'm feeling some kind of way. So I'm not going to let off of nobody's ass tonight. I'm going to make it real sweet like I always do. I'm going to make it real juicy. But you're going to feel something after this video. So we're going to get into this first video. And because they're putting pressure on this country to address their pain and plight. Now, I've been talking about this for a minute, that when coronavirus hit in America, everybody was affected. But the way the Asian community act like was they was the only one affected, and that people were projecting this on them, and other businesses were lost and continue to be lost. So I guess they feel like they the one don't supposed to feel anything. Business as usual, because this is all about money. And at the end of the day, pay attention to language, because their ultimate goal also is to see what they can squeeze out of this government. And that's more of our ADOS money. All right. So let's listen to this first audio opposed to video. Excuse me.
The deadly shootings around the Atlanta area this week have put more attention on violence and harassment against Asian Americans. NPR's Juana Summers reports on what the federal government is doing to respond.
Even before the Atlanta area shootings, the Biden administration was taking steps to address the recent surge of violence against Asians and Asian Americans. In his primetime address on the coronavirus pandemic, President Biden denounced vicious hate crimes against Asian Americans.
It's wrong, it's un-American, and it must stop.
Earlier this month, senior White House officials held a listening session with more than a dozen advocates and community leaders. Attendees of that meeting, and others held by Attorney General Merrick Garland and Justice Department officials this week, say that Biden's efforts have been a welcome change after former President Trump used racist references in his descriptions of COVID-19.
It's really nice to meet with our national leaders and leadership without, in a place where they're offering help.
That's Joanne Yu of the Asian American Federation. Now Yu and other leaders say they want the administration and the Justice Department to take concrete steps to respond. John Yang of Asian Americans Advancing Justice pointed to the department's Community Relations Service.
Their job is to interact with the community, and not in a law enforcement way, not in a prosecutorial or criminal way. Rather, their job is to go to meet with community members and also serve as a bridge to bring different community members together.
The Department of Justice says this service has been active in AAPI communities since the start of the pandemic. On Capitol Hill, Democratic lawmakers are reintroducing legislation meant to bolster law enforcement's response to hate crimes against Asian Americans. Among other things, the bill would designate a Justice Department official to speed up reviews of hate crimes reported to federal, state, or local law enforcement. Biden supports the bill. But many of the examples of racially targeted harassment and violence may not meet the legal definition of a hate crime, leading some to call for lowering that bar. Cynthia Choi is a co-founder of Stop AAPI Hate. One thing she says the Justice Department needs to do is to make sure that resources are available in a variety of languages.
You can't be a multiracial democracy and not recognize the fact that there are lots of people whose primary language is not English. We do that with the census. We do that, with other types of emergency services, that we make sure that people can be served and get the information that they need to make informed decisions in language.
And the Justice Department has recently translated its hate crimes resources website and portal into more languages, including Chinese, Vietnamese, Japanese, and Arabic. Shekhar Narasimhan, the chairman of the AAPI Victory Fund, said there needs to be a specific leader designated. He's among those who has been bringing up the need for more Asian representation in Biden's cabinet.
Give us a point person. So every month we can have a briefing. That person can talk to us about what they've learned, what's going on, answer questions, and we'll bring together people from other communities that tend not to get listened to.
The Department of Justice has not named a point person on these issues, but a department spokesperson says it has more meetings planned with AAPI lawmakers and leaders.
So, based so far on what you are hearing, this is a way to get money out of the government. And the reason why they will be effective in that way, but I'm going to also point out why they're not going to be effective in another fashion, but we're going to get into the effective part, is because they have a economical base. Right here in the Bay Area, and I'm not too far from Oakland, California, they have their own banks in their community. All right? So, yes, there will be certain things that will be addressed because money talk. We don't have money like that in our community. Plus, our money don't stay in our community. I'm not telling anything that we already don't know. All right? Now, Before I get into the next video, I want to read something here to the royal family. It's a lengthy article, so I'm not going to drag this out, but I want to start pointing out dates. Now, I should have pointed out the first date here, this date was March 21st, 2021. All right, let's keep this in mind because I'm going to show you the whole setup. So this date here is July 17th, 2020. I'm Asian American. The pandemic showed me why Black people feel so unsafe. Doesn't that sound quite familiar when the gay community says that they understand our pain and plight? You cannot, and I've said this often, you cannot always tell who is gay. That's not always a given. And that is an insult to the royal family. So in this article, let me see here, that really stood out to me. So this person says here, when coronavirus started spreading across the United States, triggering a surge in anti-Asian hate crimes, I begun feeling uncharacteristically anxious as a Korean American. I'm used to microaggressions. Okay, so you're used to that. And they're claiming that there's always been a great deal of racism towards the Asian community. But there's some deeper things going on, because the last video that I put up about this, here in California alone, they are not being hired. And they feeling some kind of way about it. Now, you didn't give a damn that we didn't get hired. You didn't even give a damn, stupidly, the very businesses that we supported, you didn't even give a damn about hiring us. But now, since it's affecting your bottom line, now you feeling some kind of way. Because I had said yesterday on Lisa Cabrera's channel, the very thing that other races fear more than anything, my royal family, is having a continuous, lifelong nigger moment. All right, my royal family? So, also, this person has said here, sometimes my eyes would well up with tears as I read reports from across the country of Asians and Asian Americans being assaulted, spat on, stabbed, or even burnt with chemicals by people who associate them with the virus. In the early March, now let's not forget, this article was done last year. In early March, only a block away from my Manhattan workplace, a Korean woman was punched in the face by a stranger who said, "You got coronavirus," and cussed at her. The woman was taken to the hospital. Okay, and she possibly had a dislocated jaw. Okay, so this has been going on where Americans are being attacked. Now, I said Americans. Okay, people that deem themselves Americans. In the beginning of this video, I said that the fiber of America is built on racism. So you don't get the cornerstone on attacks. We all know it's wrong. See, they want to try to put a guilt trip, especially on the royal family, and try to say we exclusively are the ones doing it. I mean, crime is crime here in America. We all know it's wrong. And we also know it's wrong to attack any elderly person. It doesn't matter the race of them or just any human beings in general. But y'all want to act like the way that you're coming off and the language that y'all are putting out, it don't seem like nobody else is dealing with any type of violence in America. Let me see here. Something I want to pull up here. What I'm going to do, my royal family, in this article is something I really want to read to y'all. But I got to kind of go through it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the next video so we can continue on. And I want you to pay real close attention to this next video. Now, this next video was done April 1st, 2020. All right? Keep that on your frontal lobe.
As reports of coronavirus have spread across the U.S., so have incidents of anti-Asian violence. Amna Navaz has more on that.
The coronavirus's origin in China has caused a backlash against Asian Americans in the first 2 months since the first positive diagnosis here. From schoolyards to trips to the grocery store, some Asian Americans have reported verbal and physical attacks, and the FBI has warned of a potential surge in hate crimes still to come. Beverly Leong told the NewsHour about her trip on the New York City subway.
He yelled at me on the train and said, "You people brought this virus here," before going to another part of the train car. And I found that really unsettling. My parents, my friends, were all really on edge right now, and kind of seeing how people react to us in public.
Stories like Beverly's led to the creation of Stop AAPI Hate, an online hate crime reporting tool that's registered more than 1,000 incidents in less than 2 weeks. Cynthia Choi is the co-executive director of Chinese for Affirmative Action. She helped to launch the reporting website, and she joins me now. Cynthia, welcome to the NewsHour, and thanks for being here. What specifically are people telling you? They're included in some of the reports on your site. People will talk about being spat upon, about having things thrown at them. I always like to mention when we talk about race in America, we have to remember Asian Americans are the most diverse racial group, right? So you're talking about dozens and dozens of different kinds of identities and ethnicities all under this one umbrella group. And one of the most fascinating things about your report I found was that 61% of all reports were from non-Chinese people. Did that surprise you?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously the target has been Chinese, and the assumption that those who are being victimized are of Chinese descent. But our report shows that it's affecting and impacting all Asian Americans, and for the simple fact that there might not be a recognition of the distinctions, but the fact that it's the Asian face, it's the perception that we're foreigners, and that, again, we're all hosts of this infectious disease, and that's what's so troubling about it.
You know, Cynthia, I've talked to some leaders earlier in the month in the Chinese American community in San Francisco, and I remember them telling me that they didn't want to report any of these kinds of discriminatory or racist attacks because they didn't want to rock the boat. I wonder if you're worried that these numbers you're seeing right now are actually lower than what's really happening on the ground.
Absolutely. This is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's actually happening on a daily basis. And that we need to do better, I think, to reach those impacted populations, especially those that are less likely to report incidents to various agencies and are hesitant to report to law enforcement because of negative experiences or the feeling that nothing can be done about these incidents of hate.
Cynthia, I got to ask you about some of the rhetoric coming from the highest office in the land. President Trump himself has publicly referred to the virus, linking it to China, despite the fact that health experts here and across the world have said that that kind of rhetoric is dangerous. I want to play for you really quickly his remarks from a recent briefing. This was on March 26th.
I talk about the Chinese virus, and I mean it. That's where it came from. You know, if you look at Ebola, if you look at Lyme, right? Lyme, Connecticut, you look at all these different horrible diseases, they seem to come with the name, with the location. And this was the Chinese virus. But I don't have to say it if they feel so strongly about it. We'll see.
Cynthia, when you see the reports people are submitting to your online reporting tool, is there a way to link that kind of rhetoric to what people are experiencing?
Well, we think that his insistence in the past of using or referencing the Chinese virus, or other administration officials referring to it as the Wuhan virus, certainly exacerbates the situation. And we know from our firsthand accounts on this tracker that we have individuals who are mimicking the president's words, parroting them, I should say, and that there are also individuals who reported their interactions of defending the president's words.
Cynthia, I should mention just this afternoon, the former presidential candidate Andrew Yang published an op-ed talking about the fact that despite the fact that 70% of America's doctors are of Asian descent or on the front lines of fighting this right now, people are scared and they need someone to blame. That fear is not going away anytime soon. We know the pandemic will be something we're dealing with for a while. I'm wondering if you're worried about the long-term effects of this, how you think this kind of fear and the blame that people feel they need to assign will play out over the months and the years ahead.
That's a really great question. One thing that I do want to point out is that throughout U.S. history, whenever there is a public health crisis or in wartime, different groups can be scapegoated and blamed, and certainly that's been the experience of Asian Americans, Muslims, African Americans, the Latinx community have also been subjected to that. And we do believe that long after we can resume normalcy and we beat this virus, we are very, very concerned in the Asian American community that this will have a lasting impact. We have yet to understand the full extent of what it will mean to come out on the other side. We don't think that the anti-Asian sentiment that we're seeing now is going to go away, and we're going to need to address that as a society.
We will indeed. That is Cynthia Choi, the executive
director
of Chinese for...
And she is absolutely right in what she is saying. It is not going to go away. And the reason it's not going to go away, we know what is going to happen to Moab. Now, let me get back into the other portion of this article that this person put together. Now, this was last year. Now, this person said, through the glimpse I get into Black people's experience of racism was eye-opening by understanding of it was still limited. Well, at least they was honest. As protesters against racial inequality and police brutality gathered in New York and nationwide, I received text messages from some of my Asian friends urging me to stay inside where it is safe. They told me that the Asians should not get involved in these struggles and that the matters didn't concern us, that if violence were to break out during the protests, we would end up becoming collateral damage. All right. Now, in their community, they say it's better not to get involved, basically to look the other way. And that's what all of these other races have been doing. But we're focusing right now on the Asian race because we don't have a good history. Y'all nasty to us. All you want is money from us. And that's what you want from us now. And you're confused. One minute you want to say we're whooping your ass disproportionately in the streets of America. Then on the flip side, you talking about Black Lives Matter. Now let's go back here. I said, keep on your frontal lobe. Keep on your frontal lobe. Solidarity? Why do we need solidarity? What would be the reason for that? Now, let's get into this next video. It's a short one. And this video was put up last month.
Oakland and San Francisco are coming together to call on elected leaders to do something about the recent crime and violence against Asian Americans on both sides of the bay. KTVU's Ali Rasmus joins us live this afternoon with more on the story. Ali, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Yeah, we heard from representatives from about 8 different community organizations from Oakland and San Francisco. They talked about the recent crimes that have happened in victimized businesses and the elderly in Oakland's Chinatown and across the bay in San Francisco.
We do know that the rise in anti-Asian racism and attacks against our community over the past year has had devastating impacts. Over 2,800 nationally, and here in San Francisco, 700 incidents.
have been reported.
Recent unprovoked attacks that have victimized elderly residents in Oakland's Chinatown and San Francisco have sparked outrage and worry. In response, organizers with several community organizations in Oakland and San Francisco called on city leaders on both sides of the bay to take steps to solve the problem. They're calling for things like increased resources for victim services in the Asian community, as well as investing in job training for young people of all racial and ethnic backgrounds.
We must invest in the communities most impacted by poverty. These include more jobs for our youth, our young adults, educational, vocational training that makes sure our young people are earning money and they're keeping busy.
Organizers in Oakland called on the city to expand its existing community ambassador program in Chinatown. They expressed concerns about citizen patrols forming to try and fill a security void.
While we appreciate the effort, we're also really concerned that, folks are organizing their own. They're not necessarily trained in de-escalation tactics and may not actually be connected to a lot of the community resources that we want to be able to share the way that our Chinatown Ambassador program is trained to do so.
Now, the groups and the organizations we heard from on that call say that they are planning what they're describing as a multiracial healing event, a couple events set to take place this weekend. They said they'll be working with community groups from the Black, Latino, and Indigenous communities to organize those events Saturday and Sunday, both in Oakland and in San Francisco. Reporting live, Ali Rasmus, KTVU, Fox 2 News. Mike?
All right,
All right, my royal family, let me take that down. Okay, I don't want nothing to pop up. So they want to have a unquote healing event. Well, I'm going to keep it real core with other races of folks, let alone the Asian community. It is too damn late. And the reason why it is too damn late to heal or to have unquote solidarity, we are fully damaged. We've been damaged long, long ago. And now you're starting to realize that if you invest back into the very people that have patronized you, that would put more dollars back into your businesses. Now they're talking about their businesses disproportionately also being attacked because of what's going down. The number one crime that's going on in America is theft of food. People are food deprived. This is going on in all businesses. You do not get the cornerstone on violence or whatever negative that's being projected on you in America. Again, the fiber of America is built on violence. The blood, the very blood, the soak in America is raw blood. All right? So now you want to come together saying, oh, we got to keep all the youth working and all of that. It is too damn late because we know what you own. And see, the majority of this money, they want to come from the government. And we pay taxes. That's our ADOS money. So far, based on just a few little snippets of audios or videos that I showed y'all, they've been planning this all along. But they needed something big enough to launch, to put to make the government feel guilty. They even tried to make us feel guilty and pull us in. Why do we need solidarity all of a sudden? Y'all don't give a damn about us. And when I was doing my research, I found out, is it this one here? Yeah, I'm going to pin this article, and you'll see in here where Frederick Douglass, back in the 1800s, advocated for the Asian community. And you'll see just various snippets here where the African American community, as usual, stuck their neck out to help your ass. And then once you got a foothold in this country, you didn't want whatever that was going on with us, where we are getting disproportionately attacked, because they shooting the entire royal family. You know, they killing us in our bedrooms. They ain't just shooting the black man, or we just hanging from trees and all of that and stuff. Y'all just looked away. But when you need something from us, we have a history right here, a history that you can see right here, my royal family, that we have a history of helping them and others. And they're going to do the same shit. But this time it's not going to work because we in a different space and time, Moab. All right? Anybody that's a Hebrew Israelite and know what they know so far, we know what's going to happen to Moab. So now we're going to get into this next video. And, and before we get into this next video, I know y'all feeling some kind of way because this demon here killed up your folks. Well, this is what these demons do. They kill up our folks too. They even kill up their own folks because they said in the end that they would eat their own. Well, notice that you don't see his picture in heavy rotation. And also pay attention to the inflections in people's voices when they report this stuff. They don't give a damn about y'all. They're reacting just the way they react to us. And then y'all wondering why they're not saying this is a hate crime. Why? What's really going on in America?
In Cherokee County, and that's about 40 miles north of Atlanta. We're here because this is the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office, and behind this lower building here in the far distance, the taller building, is the Cherokee County Adult Detention Center, and that's where the suspect of the Tuesday shootings is currently being held. That person is in custody after, if you remember, on Tuesday, after admitting to shootings at 3 spas in the area. The police had released surveillance images of him. His parents called police and were able to help identify him. Police stopped him on the way down south to where investigators believe he was headed to Florida to commit similar attacks. Now, if you're hearing any gunshots in the background here, it's because there's training going on next to us. It sounds like shooting practice. Again, this is a sheriff's office and the detention facility right behind us. If you also notice, there are flags there at half-staff, and President Biden has ordered flags at half-staff to honor the victims in the killings at these 3 spas. Now, just to kind of give you an overview again, there were 3 spa locations where these shootings happened. One of them was here in this county, in Cherokee County, where 4 people died. And then police believe that the shooter then went south to Atlanta, where he continued at 2 different spas within the city, and 4 people died there. So a total of 8 people, with 6 of the victims being Asian women. The 7th was a white woman, and the 8th was a white man. So we are talking about also Asian-owned businesses, and again, majority of the victims being Asian. And so I see that some of you have sent questions to us ahead of time. We really appreciate that. And one of the questions is about race, because Louise asks, have the police officially identified these killings as hate crimes yet? The answer is not officially, no. The Atlanta police said yesterday afternoon that they are still investigating all angles of this, and they're not taking anything off the table. They're still investigating the motive of this act. Some of you may have heard that the suspect did an interview with investigators after he was arrested, and he told them that his motivation was really based on his sexual addiction, that he said he was trying to perhaps take out the temptation for his sex addiction, and that it wasn't racially motivated. However, as many of you have brought up, the fact that most of the victims were Asian women, the fact that these businesses are Asian owned, that certainly is a factor to consider here. And Atlanta police, along with certain elected leaders, have suggested that that should be looked at. To remind folks, here in Georgia, the hate crime law actually includes targeting victims not just based on race, national origin, religion, etc. It also includes targeting victims based on their sex. So here in Georgia, it could be a hate crime if one were to target women in general as well for a specific in a specific crime like this. Daniel has asked, what steps would the government take if the shooting is to be found a hate crime? Of course, the FBI, I should mention, is also involved in looking at that angle. But again, this all comes down to making sure that every possible aspect of this is looked into by the authorities, both here in Cherokee County as well as Fulton County. So 2 different jurisdictions here, as well as federal help with the FBI. Jin has asked, why is the incident not being addressed as an act of terrorism? This is interesting because yesterday I was at the spa location here in Cherokee County where some folks were bringing flowers by, honoring the victims, and some folks asked me that as well, including one woman a couple women actually, who told me they felt that if this were not a white suspect, that this would have been described differently, that they perhaps would have been called a terrorist by now. So I just want to at least clarify with everyone how the FBI defines domestic terrorism. And that's this: violent criminal acts committed by individuals and or groups to further ideological goals stemming from domestic influences, such as those of a political, religious, social, racial, or environmental nature. So that's how the FBI defines domestic terrorism. And of course, given what we just said about the different jurisdictions still investigating the motivation behind this, that is something that we'll continue to look out for and continue to ask about. Katrina asks, I don't live near Atlanta, but would like to help. What can I do? That's an excellent question. We have a link to share with you, cnn.com/impactsyourworld. And that's where you'll find some resources. Specifically, Asian Americans Advancing Justice is an organization that has done a lot in this realm as far as bringing light to some of the anti-Asian rhetoric, the attacks, the rise in these incidents over the past year. There are also groups coordinating bystander training. And I see that the next question from Samuel, what can I do if I see or witness acts of hate in my local community? So that resource could also be helpful with bystander training. I also want to point out that Stop AAPI Hate is a group that has done a lot of work over the past year collecting reports of anti-Asian incidents, especially during the pandemic, because unfortunately, this type of thing hasn't really been reported very well in the past. There's not really a strong record-keeping mechanism here, and groups like Stop AAPI Hate have stepped up to do that, to fill that void. And to be clear, this has been something difficult for the Asian American community, obviously, because the experience has been very challenging over the past year, seeing the rise in these reports of anti-Asian incidents. And culturally speaking, I've also noticed and observed that a lot of times it's discouraged to talk about these incidents, but we see that more and more people are stepping forward and opening up and speaking out about such incidents happening to them. Bringing it back to these killings in particular, obviously, again, I should repeat, the suspect has told investigators this was not racially motivated. Police are still looking into all angles to see how everything connects. But I think, Anderson Cooper also made a good point last night on his show. If the motivation is, in fact, this person's claim of sexual addiction and taking out temptation, the fact that this person could be equating women, Asian women, as the temptation is in itself a problem, right? And it in itself intersects with the issue of race and sex and gender. So a lot for authorities to comb through and consider. Charles asks, do local police plan to protect the spas or other locations specific to the Asian community? This is a great question because right when this happened on Tuesday night, afterward, the New York City police, Seattle police, the Houston police really deployed extra resources to the Asian American businesses and residences in those cities out of an abundance of caution to offer additional support. Here in Atlanta, I asked about that at a press conference on Wednesday morning, and the response was that there's not a belief at this time that there's a threat to similar businesses. I specifically asked whether extra resources would be deployed both for perhaps Asian businesses or just similar massage parlors or spas. And the response was that they believe this person acted alone, and so therefore they don't believe that other similar businesses should feel an ongoing threat right at this moment. Jason asks, what are the names of the victims that have been released so far? I'm going to read these to you. I should note that we are still trying to identify the nationality and ethnicity of all of these people here in this list. But again, we know that 6 of the 8 victims were Asian. So let's start with the Atlanta victims. There are 4 of them in Atlanta. 74-year-old Soon Si Park, 51-year-old Hyun J. Grant, 69-year-old Sunsha Kim, 63-year-old Young A. Yue. We're going to find out if that's exactly the pronunciation on that final name I just said. So just to be clear, that's my best guess at the pronunciation right at this moment. And here, the 4 people killed in Cherokee County, Delana Yan, age 33, Paul Andre Michaels, 54, Xiao Jie Tan, 49 years old, and Dao Yo Feng, 44 years old. So of the 4 people killed here in Cherokee County, 2 of them were Asian women, 1 white woman, 1 white man. I should note that the Atlanta police released an incident report yesterday that showed just how brutal this was. I mean, we're talking about the report showed that, a couple of these people were shot in the face, 1 shot in the head. The Fulton County Medical Examiner, when they released these names, also gave descriptions like that. Just very heartbreaking. And we also heard the 911 calls from the women inside these businesses. Some of them were hiding at the time. And so really everyone's hearts go out to these families right now, the families of the victims. And we know that the members of the community have been showing support at the spas. And also, as a final note, President Biden and Vice President Harris will be visiting Atlanta today. And as part of their visit, they'll be visiting with leaders from the Asian American members of the Georgia State Legislature, as well as leaders from the Asian American advocacy groups in town, to kind of see what possible help and resources can be done, next steps to support the Asian American community. So I really want to thank everyone for joining us today and sending in these questions. These are all really great questions, and of course we'll continue to ask them and figure.
So let's go back here. They're going to do everything that they can to possibly protect this demon and downplay it. I'm just letting y'all know straight up. And these are, if the Asians are over here listening, that's exactly what they're going to do. Because so far the way they're reacting on some of this, and I'm saying this again, on some of this is how they treat us. The only difference is, you got the government all involved, because they usually don't get involved in our affairs. They may make some little funky ass statements and stuff, and then when election time come, they promise they gonna do this and that, and those are just promises. That's it, and that's all. So let's get back here as I close out. Why do we need solidarity? We need to really get core on our unquote history. What have the Asian community did for the royal family? Not a damn thing. And they will not do a damn thing. And based on prophecy, Moab, based on prophecy, what's going on in prophecy, your future is very, very bleak to kneel. All right? Do you fully understand that? So what I suggest for our people to do, like I always say, deal with your immediate situation. People that you can collectively reach out and touch in your individual household. And it doesn't take the whole collective for us to do this, but if enough do what we need to do with our immediate situation, it creates a energy. And then we're helping our own. We cannot help no one else at all. We don't have the resources. This country is not going to invest the resources in this at all. Now, if the Asian community wants to so-called help us, ADOS, we need our money at the end of the day. Because you damn sure got your money when this atrocious country shit it all on you somewhat. And then you were able to resume on with y'all lives, open y'all banks, have your stores and all of that. And I don't resent that at all. I'm all for nepotism and all of that. Hire your own. Have your own businesses and all of that. But don't require or demand of us of anything, let alone solidarity. Miss me with that, Moab. So my royal family, render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And it's always my royal family. I thank you for your love and I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.